My stepmother sold my childhood home after Dad died, then showed up homeless at my door. My stepmother. Diane laughed in my face at my father's funeral when I asked about the family photo albums. They're mine now, just like everything else, she said, walking away in her designer black dress that Dad had probably paid for. 3 days later, she listed my childhood home for sale, bare to the home where my real mother had planted the garden I grew up tending with Dad. I wasn't surprised. Diane had spent 12 years systematically removing every trace of my mother from our lives. What did surprise me was how quickly Dad had changed his will after his cancer diagnosis, leaving everything to her and nothing to me. Your daughter has her own life now, my dad's lawyer explained, awkwardly reading from his notes. She doesn't need the financial support. I did have my own life, a small apartment in Chicago, a job I worked hard for, and friends who became the family I needed. I built it all myself after escaping Diane's constant reminders that I was unwanted baggage from Dad's previous marriage. Last Tuesday, a knock on my door changed everything. There stood Diane Parent, no designer clothes, no perfectly styled hair, just a worn backpack and desperation in her eyes. Rebecca, she whispered. I have nowhere else to go. The stock market crash had wiped out her investments. The younger boyfriend she left with, after selling Dad's house, had disappeared with what remained of her money. Now the woman who had erased my mother's memory and taken my inheritance needed my help. My first instinct was to slam the door. I even started to close it when I noticed something familiar poking out of her bag, turned the corner of my parents' wedding album. You kept them? I asked, my voice catching. She nodded, tears forming. They were the only things I couldn't sell, I thought. Maybe someday you'd want them back. Against every screaming instinct, I opened my door wider. Not for her, but for those albums, part of the last connection to my parents and the life we had before everything fell apart. 3 nights, I said firmly. And I want every album you have. That night, as Diane slept on my couch, I stayed up until dawn, looking through photos I hadn't seen in years. My mother's smile, Dad lifting me onto his shoulders. The garden in full bloom. I realized something as the sun came up. The inheritance Diane had taken was just money and a house. But what really mattered, to the memories, the lessons my parents taught me about compassion. Those had been inside me all along. Diane still on my couch a week later. I am helping her find a job and an apartment, not because I've forgiven her, but because it's what my mother would have done. And in the choice between becoming bitter like Diane or compassionate like my mom, I finally know which legacy I am choosing to inherit. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't making someone suffer, it's refusing to let them change who you are. This narrative delivers emotional depth through specific details, the garden photo albums, and creates tension between justifiable anger and unexpected compassion. The opening immediately presents the conflict and emotional stakes. The character's journey felt authentic, moving from righteous anger to a more complex emotional resolution that audiences will find both satisfying and thought-provoking.